The death toll from the Turkey-Syria earthquakes is nearing 42,000. Turkish authorities say 36,187 people have been killed in the country. The Syrian government and the United Nations say more than 5,800 people have died in Syria. Yet rescuers are also continuing to find survivors. A mother and her 2 children were rescued in Turkey's Antakya, 228 hours after the first earthquake. The World Health Organization says the zone of greatest concern is northwestern Syria, where anger is growing over the slow delivery of humanitarian assistance. The UN is appealing for $397 million in aid to help 5 million Syrian survivors with shelter, healthcare, and food. The death toll from them. Devastating. Earthquakes in Turkey and Syria has now surpassed 37,000. Tens of thousands of people are still missing, and social media feeds are awash with examples of newly built residential complexes that have collapsed like sandcastles, burying occupants under the rubble. Many of these buildings were sold as luxury housing, compliant with the latest earthquake safety standards. Some of the contractors responsible have tried to flee Turkey. Warrants have been issued for more than 130 people over alleged breaches of safety codes, and several construction company owners have been arrested. Earthquake survivors struggle in Turkey and Syria. Israel approves more illegal settlements, and dozens missing after a shipwreck off Libya. Here's your roundup of our coverage, written by Abu Bakr al-Shamahi, Al Jazeera Digital's Middle East and North Africa editor. It's been more than a week since 2 major earthquakes devastated southern Turkey and northwestern Syria, and yet, in some cases that feel almost miraculous, people are still being pulled out of the rubble alive. But those people are the rare exceptions, as the death toll keeps climbing higher, which at the time of this writing stood at more than 41,000, but will certainly only grow. Earthquake survivors are struggling with the cold and the lack of shelter, with so many millions in need. And then, in northwestern Syria, held by the opposition, in Syria's never-ending civil war, there has been growing anger at the United Nations for the initial absence of aid. The UN eventually apologized, almost a week after the earthquake, a week in which Syrians in the region had largely been left to fend for themselves. Since then, help has begun to arrive, including through a border crossing that has not been opened since 2020. The United States has also exempted all transactions related to providing disaster relief from various sanctions against the Syrian government. In Turkey, volunteers have admirably traveled from across the country to help in any way they can. But the conversation is now turning to what could have been done to prevent such large-scale suffering in a country that is so obviously prone to earthquakes. Accusations have been made against the contractors who built some of the collapsed buildings, some only a few years old, constructed after tougher earthquake building regulations had been introduced in Turkey. More than 100 arrests have been made. Blame has also been directed against the Turkish government, with many asking, why were the rules that should have prevented so many buildings from collapsing not properly enforced? The government will want to provide answers, with a presidential election pending in May.